to talk today. I'm gonna talk today. I'm gonna tell you the story of Sir Percival, because we can't really discuss individuality and compassion without telling the story of Percival. So that's what we're gonna talk to. And by the way, just as a side, before I get into that, that BBC was amazing.
Thank you.
As a side note, Claude Debussy, who composed that song or that piece, most people don't know this, but he was actually a Sir Knight who was dedicated to the Grail quest. And in fact, that song, that particular piece, you may not know this, but that song was composed originally. The idea behind it was it represented what was known as the Grail ship, or the boat that you got on to take you across the sea to the Holy Grail. And that's what that piece was about. So next time you hear that being performed, I hope you think of camp and you think of knighthood, and you can appreciate it for what it is. All right, so with that, I'm going to talk about the story of Sir Percival. And the story of Sir Percival actually starts out in the woods. Much like camp, Sir Percival was raised in the forest by his mother. Percival's father was a knight, and his father had gone off to the Holy Land to fight in crusades, and this was, it was rough business back then. I mean, it was war in the Middle East, and Percival's father had gone off to fight in the Middle East, and the story is that he wasn't the most faithful person. He had taken upon himself a second wife while he was in the Holy Land, and so Percival's mother was so frustrated and mad at Percival's father that she was like, you know what? I'm just going to raise my kid in the woods, away from society, away from all the evils of the world, and so he could just grow up in nature and with animals and in the trees, and not deal with all of this craziness that was happening in the world at the time. So Percival, as a young boy, he spent his childhood running around the mountains, chasing rabbits and chasing deer, and he didn't really know anything about civilization or anything. He was just being raised in a little cabin in the woods and with his mother. Well, one day, when Percival was about 14 years old, he was out chasing a rabbit, and all of a sudden he heard this galloping sound, and next thing you know, these knights rode up on horses, and Percival had never seen a knight before. So he was kind of freaked out, because here was these knights in shining armor that were from King Arthur's court, and they were out patrolling the land and making sure law and order was being enacted, and that people weren't being oppressed, and everything that the court of King Arthur was supposed to do. So when Percival saw these knights, he didn't know who they were. He didn't know what they were. He'd never seen people on horses before. His job was to protect the Holy Grail. And what had happened was he had gone out to battle himself, and he had received a wound, a terrible wound, which wouldn't heal. In fact, that king, the Fisher King, got very sick, like very sick. And the stories say that he wasn't alive, but he wasn't dead. He couldn't stand, but he couldn't sit. He was just torn between extreme duality. He wasn't hot, but he wasn't cold. And he was just like suffering. And as he suffered, the land began to suffer. Because there was this connection between the king and the land itself. And as the land started to suffer, it turned into this environmental wasteland. All the trees started dying, all the crops stopped growing. There was great famine that started. People were starving. And as a result of this, not only was the people starving, but then they started getting sick. So there was this great sickness that had spread all through Camelot. And, people were really afraid. And they didn't know, they were like, what happened? Why is this happening to us? Like, the earth's falling apart. People are sick. Everybody's miserable. What are we going to do? Well, it was at this point that Merlin stepped forward and he said, look, this is what's happening. The Fisher King got wounded, and the only way we can heal the land is if we heal the Fisher King. And the only way we can heal the Fisher King is if we find the Holy Grail. We have to find this thing called the Holy Grail, and this is what will heal the Fisher King. And therefore, it will start to heal the land itself. And the sickness will go away, and crops will start to grow again, and things will be good. So, all the knights vowed at that moment to go and search for the Holy Grail. And all the ladies in the court vowed to protect Camelot as the knights were leaving Camelot to go find the Grail. And the ladies, mind you, they were in charge, just like we have up here at camp. The ladies were in charge of the alchemy program up at camp, and their job was to heal everybody, especially the knights as they were coming back from combat. But their job was also to try to keep the mood up, to transmute the attitude of Camelot, because everyone was very down. So they tried to, just like what was talked about earlier, when they saw all this negativity, they had a choice on whether to stay in the negative or whether to try to promote positive thinking and positive attitude and try to keep Camelot a cheery place as much as possible, even though things were really terrible outside Camelot. So everyone was very sad because everyone had to separate and go and search for this Grail. And all of the normal festivities and all of the joyous times that they would have together in Camelot had to cease for a while because of the sickness and the plague and the need to search for the Grail. Well, one of the knights who went out and searched for the Grail was Sir Percival. And as he was out searching for the Grail, he actually had only been searching for the Grail a couple days when one night there was this incredible storm, and he happened to see a castle. And he went into the castle, and sure enough, lucky him, to his good fortune, it turned out to be the Grail Castle. So he went inside, and they welcomed him. And they said, come in, Percival. Come into the castle. Take shelter, get out of the rain. Make yourself comfortable. We're about to have this feast, and you are welcome to participate in it. So, Percival was like, great. So he went in and he sat down, and the feast was just about to start, and the Grail King was brought in. And the Grail King had to be carried in on a stretcher. because he was in such bad shape because that wound he had received, that injury he had received, still hadn't healed. And it had been several years, and he was miserable. And Percival saw him and thought to himself, my God, look at how this person is suffering. I wish I could help him. And but Percival had learned in Camelot that you don't speak to someone of higher authority unless you're spoken to first. So he didn't say anything. He just sat there, watched the Grail King get brought in, and they participated in a small feast. And then the Grail King was brought out, and they escorted Percival to his room, and they said, you can sleep here tonight, and we'll see you in the morning. So Percival went to bed, and when he woke up the next morning, he was alone in the forest. The castle had disappeared. All the people had disappeared. It was just him alone in the forest. And he thought, oh, I was so close to finding the Grail. I was there at the Grail Castle. And I failed. But I swore that I would keep searching for it. So he decided to set himself out on a quest again to find the Grail and hopefully find this Grail Castle again. So Percival quested for several years. And, during this whole time, it was getting rough. I mean, his armor was getting rusty. His shield was getting rusty. He was tired. He was hungry. Everywhere he went was misery. So he was really depressed. I mean, it was a depressing situation. He was out in this world, and it was just not great. So, but he kept going because he promised he would. Somewhere along the line, he came across a little hut. And in the hut was a hermit. And the hermit's name is Trevisrent. And Trevisrent means threefold knower, or knower of three things. And so there's this hermit known as Trevisrent, the knower of three things, who was in this hut. And Trevisrent welcomed Percival in and said, come in, I recognize you. You're a knight from Camelot, are you not? And Percival's like, yeah, I sure am. And Trevisrent's like, well, come on in, I'll feed you. You can sit down and I will serve you food. You must be tired from your quest. And so Percival's like, yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate you taking me in. So Percival came into the hut, and Trevisrent made some soup that he had that was, was pretty watery. There wasn't a lot in it because not much was growing at the time. And Trevisrent said, well, all right, before we eat, we need to say our prayers. We need to say grace before we eat. And Parzival said, well, I don't pray anymore. And Trevisrent's like, what do you mean you don't pray? You're searching for the Holy Grail. How can you not pray and be searching for a holy thing? And Percival said, well, I used to pray and I got close to the Grail Castle and I didn't get it, and I've just kind of lost my faith, I'm just not so much into that anymore. And Trevisrent said, well, that's fine, but if you're not willing to pray, if you're not willing to connect with God, however you choose to define that, however you choose to define God, if God's not your anchor, then you're not going to find the Holy Grail. And Percival's like, well, okay, whatever. And they went on to eat there, and Trevisrent prayed. He said, well, I'll pray for us. So he gave a prayer, and then they ate their soup. Percival thanked him, and then he went on his quest again. And he kept questing. This went on for years. Almost 7 years, Percival was questing. He wasn't finding anything. He was just encountering misery everywhere he went. And he was depressed. He was feeling really down about things. And he thought, what did I get myself into? Why did I even bother doing this? Why am I committed to this stupid quest that's just bringing nothing but misery to me? But he said, but I swore that I would do it. So he kept going. Somewhere along the line, Percival, maybe in boredom, decided that he was going to let go of the reins of his horse and just trust his horse to take him wherever it needed to take him. He had no idea where he was going. He didn't know where the Grail Castle was. But he thought, if there really is a God, maybe God will direct me. I'm just going to let go. So he lets go of the reins of his horse. And sure enough, the horse takes him directly to the Grail Castle. Well, this is great, right? Percival's couldn't believe it. I mean, he'd been searching again for 7 years just to get back to this point. And so he arrived at the Grail Castle. They welcomed him in again. Same thing. They told him, hey, we're about to have a feast. You're welcome to sit down and participate. So Percival comes in, he sits down, and then they go to bring the Grail King in again. And he's wounded. Again, he's so sick. He's just miserable, you can tell. And Percival, this time, when he sees the Grail King, he has compassion for him. And the word compassion means, it comes from the root com, meaning with, and passion, which means feeling. So one definition of compassion means to suffer together. It means to recognize that the person suffering is a part of you, and you are a part of the person suffering. And therefore, you have a responsibility to the person who's suffering. So this time, he just ignores all the rules he'd been taught. And as an individual, he decides he's going to go up to the Grail King who's suffering. And out of compassion, he says to the Grail King, he says, what ails you? How can I help you? What can I do for you? How can I relieve your suffering? And this spontaneous act of Percival, of just following his heart, made the Holy Grail appear. And Percival was able to take the Holy Grail, and he gave it to the Fisher King, and he healed the Fisher King. And the Fisher King said, thank you, Percival. You have relieved my suffering. I'm going to die now. And you can be the new Grail King. And Percival's like, what? I was trying to heal you, not kill you. And he's like, no, it's all right. It's time for me to go. So the Grail King's like, but thank you. I'm no longer suffering. And he dies, right? And Percival's like, so now Percival has the Grail. And he's like, what should I do with it? And Trevisrent the hermit appears. And he says, Percival, you can drink from the Grail. Because through your own actions, you have changed God's law. This is a very profound statement that suggests we are co-creators in our world. And we have the ability to make it better or to make it worse. And Percival chose to make it better. He chose to have compassion, to heal the sick. And this is why he was able to get the Grail. So Percival drinks of the Grail, and he has this, in the ancient text, what it's referred to as is a gnosis, or a divine knowledge. It's this experiential divine knowledge of God and of the order of all creation. And he becomes connected with it all. And all of his illnesses go away. His armor gets shiny again. His shield gets shiny again. And then the land stops being sick. And the crops start to grow again. And all the sickness goes away that's in the land. And then Parzival becomes the new Grail King. And from that moment forward, he's in charge of protecting the Holy Grail. So, Parzival, through acting as an individual, and not just following what everybody else in the world is being told to do, and because he's following his heart, he's able to attain the Grail, and he's able to heal the land, he's able to heal the sickness, and then everything's happy at Camelot again. And from that moment forward, Percival's shield was a white field with a red heart on it, and that red heart turned into a golden heart. So this is the origin of where the golden hearts, that's the order of the golden hearts, this is where it comes from. It's the story of Percival following his heart and obtaining the Holy Grail. So, knights and ladies, we are all on this quest every moment of our lives. We're on this quest to find the Grail and to make the world a better place, and to heal the sick, to defend the weak and oppressed, and to allow nature to grow in harmony, allow crops to thrive and grow, and animals to live in harmony. And when this happens, the wasteland will be healed. And we are living in the wasteland right now. I mean, the sickness that you see out in the world with COVID and the environmental disasters that you see that are going on, this is the wasteland that is happening. But each of you, as knights and ladies, are sworn to the quest. Each of you are sworn to help heal this wasteland. Each of you are taking the path of Percival, where you can be your own individual, odd duck, goofball self, like Percival was, but by following your heart and listening to your heart and acting with compassion and recognizing the suffering of others and trying to help heal the suffering of others, we can help make the world a better place. So that's the story of Percival, and I'm thankful for being able to tell it to you. So carry it with you through the rest of the night.